like to call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody here this evening. My name is Tom Throne. I'm the chairman of the election committee for the POA. We're here for Candidates Forum, and I want to go over the format real briefly. There'll be a 3-minute opening statement from each candidate. Then we will ask a series of questions. We've got several good questions. We'll see how time allows, and we'll try to get as many questions as we can answered. We try to keep these in about an hour and a half to a little bit over that, because after that people start losing interest. So we'll do the best we can to get through as many questions as we can. And then there'll be a 2-minute closing at the end for the candidates to say any final thoughts that they may or may not have. Just a quick note, there will not be a question about the stump dump tonight because of potential litigation. And so we've told the candidates if they wish to address that, they either had to do that in their opening or their closing statements. So, that everything clear on that? Okie doke. With that, we'll start with, maybe we should have all the candidates introduce themselves and we'll go from there. So, Tia, if you would introduce yourself and then we'll go do the opening statements.
I'm Tia Bidwell. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Right, Steve McKee, and thank you all also. Good to see everybody, and thanks to the election committee.
Bruce Portello, good to be here. Thank you.
My name is Pat Laurie. Whoops. My name is Pat.
My name is Pat Laurie.
My name is Jerry Barron. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here.
My name is John Little, and it's good to see all of you here, and thank you for coming.
With that, Tia, you're on with your opening statement.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Like I said, I'm Tia Bidwell. I am a newer resident to Bella Vista. I've been here since 2016. I currently am employed at Rimports. I have a little just about my background. I do have my undergrad in international relations, my master's in executive management for business. I run .com and international, the ASDA account for Walmart. And I am also on the Community Involvement Joint Action Committee here in Bella Vista. I have also completed a board certification class. I am the vice president of a nonprofit locally out of Springdale. We rescue bully breed dogs. And my spare time, I ride a motorcycle. I love the outdoor weather. I love going camping. I have used a few of the amenities here, but not all of them. I'm not a golfer. I'm not a bicyclist. But I do understand the amenities that we have in this area and that they are important to other people, even though I don't use them. I also have the Halloween house in Bella Vista. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen it. It's the Skeleton House. We've been here for 2 years now. We decorate for Halloween and take in profits and donations for our local rescue. When I first moved here from Centerton 2 years ago, I do have to say I had a lot of misconceptions about Bella Vista. I truly thought it was a private community still, and I think a lot of the people outside of Bella Vista still feel that way, that when you pay your POA dues, when you move here, you have these private amenities, you have this scenery. I found my dream home. I know I'm probably the furthest away from retirement age in here, but I have bought my retirement home, and this is where I want to stay. I started getting involved in this community when the trails were being built last year and when the assessment increase was coming, and it caught my attention. And before that I was not very involved, but both of those things got me very involved in the community. I started going to the POA meetings, and my personal situation with the trail going behind my home, that's what started it, and that's been resolved with the Trailblazers. But I will be very open and honest to you guys about the fact that I do support the trails. I think they are a great idea, but I also think that those trails should have had a member vote. That is our property, that was our common land, and it should have been a vote. Also, we need the finances to afford those things, and currently we don't have that. So that's what got me involved. That's what got me to this seat right here, is becoming vocal on those things and understanding what paying POA dues mean and why I want to be involved and why I want to speak for you guys. I know my opinion might not always align with yours. I might have a completely different opinion. You might be against the trails, you might be for the trails. All kinds of topics are going to come up in the next 3 years in this seat. But it is not my opinion that I will focus on, it is yours. The people that come out, the people that want to stay here, that care about our city, that want to help it, want to see it grow. And it's your opinions that I would like to be on this board to represent. Thank you.
Greetings, it's good to see everybody again, and welcome to the Meet the Candidates, right? Want to also again thank the election committee. My name is Steve McKee. This introduction is going to be a little fast, but I will remain here after the meeting if anybody has any questions. If you want to meet as a small group on a later day, just let me know. I'll be happy to show up and talk some more. I ask for your support and your vote. I've got a degree in philosophy, and that's helped me over the years to look at both sides of an argument and then arrive at a sound conclusion. I also took a bunch of financial classes, and I began as a broker at Merrill Lynch. I now have my own financial company. I have looked at hundreds of financial statements over the years. I was recently appointed to the golf committee. I am also very active and attend and speak at many of the board and committee and city council meetings over a variety of interests and issues. My platform is very simple. It's members first. We pay the assessments, but again, don't get me wrong, we love our guests, our friends, and our families. My platform, I believe, is a clear contrast to what the current direction that could only be called the public first. That policy began about 2015 when they decided to make us into a tourist destination. And to do this, POA policies were changed. Amenities were no longer private. $12 million in reserves have been spent. They're now borrowing money. They proposed a $14 million community center to be paid back over 20 years, open to the public, and we're supposed to pay for it. Most members have rightly begun to ask, why should we support this? Now, to be clear, we welcomed and cheered the necessary amenity improvements, and we hope for the best. But here we are with no reserves and lost values, and we see the results of that open to the public venue. So we believe it's time for a change that begins with new question, what's in it for us as the members? Over the last year, I've been asking questions, gathering input, and working with members on answers. And some are already talking about this new package plan, but for it to be successful, it'll require changes from the top down, beginning at the board level. I believe our future, our amenities, our stability, and our prosperity depends on these changes. It's time for a change away from the destination resort plans and refocus on the value of be a member. With my willingness to listen, my financial background, and my involvement, a vote for me, Steve McKee, is a vote for you.
I should ask that this is a forum. Please hold your applause until the end. Bruce.
My name is Bruce Portello. I am a current board member. This would be my 4th year as a board member. During that time, we, the board, have approved and actually gone through with planning that resulted in the Country Club building renovation, the Lake Point Restaurant and Event Center renovation, the Branchwood Recreation renovation, the Branchwood Park walking trail, and various improvements to the golf courses around Bella Vista. I'm not sure I would call this a destination resort. If that's what some other people want to call it, that's fine. But I would not call Bella Vista isolationist either. We're at the northern end of one of the strongest economic zones in the country. That's not going to change. The growth is coming. Many of you can see it in the cleared lots throughout the village. That's going to mean more people. and I think that that is a good thing for the village. Yes, we did use up most of the cash, not reserves, but the cash we had in making improvements to the village, which I believe the people have enjoyed and I believe the people have wanted. I may stand to be corrected, but I stand by that. Like Tia, I am for the trails. I think I was quoted recently in the paper that in my walks on the trails, I haven't seen a house closer than 75 yards to the trails. Those were about 14 miles of walks that I took. I did not come into close contact with houses, but I do understand that there are houses closer to that trail. Still, I think it's a boon. And I think what happened yesterday with the Arboretum opening is just another check mark on the good side for Bella Vista. There is work to be done. There are considerations by the board right now going forward to keep making what we consider to be improvements. One of the most discouraging things that I've run into in the years since I've been here, and I've been here since '08, I may not have said that. We bought in '05, I've been here since '08, is one sentence?
One sentence.
Okay. 33 years, comma, 2 assessment fee, 34 years, 2 assessment fee increases, comma, $24 a month for one of the largest POAs in the country. Folks, that's sad. Thank you.
Pat?
Good evening. My wife Diane and I came up here in 2005 or so and looked around and really liked what we saw. In 2006, we came up to go to a timeshare in Branson and invited a couple friends of ours from here to go with us. On our return to Bella Vista, we had asked my sister, who is a realtor out in San Francisco, to, well, she had volunteered to find a realtor that she thought could really help us out. And so she called a number of realtors and interviewed them. Well, we said we wanted to find out what sort of housing is available in Bella Vista. We went over to the office and were greeted at the front door with by this lady who had 6 or 7 packets under her arms of houses she wanted to see, wanted to show us. She said, I can tell more about what you want by hearing how you react to current housing. A couple days later, we put down an offer, and we have been blissfully happy ever since then that we were going to be moving to Bella Vista, but we're not able to do so and retire until 2013. During my tenure on the board, I've learned about what it means to serve the community. It means, of course, doing what's best for the community as a whole, and as far as possible, each individual member. But of equal importance is how you do that. How do you do the best? It is not a matter of saying, as a member of the board, I know what is best. Rather, it is discovering what is best and then doing it. I believe that to achieve this, as a board member, I must and will engage with the community in discovering what they want Bella Vista to be and what they want it to become. As a board member, I must and will provide a forum for the community to be heard. How are people going to express themselves? I must and will listen without bias. I must and will speak straightforwardly to you. As a board member, I have a special responsibility to be accessible and approachable. As I have, I must continue to be willing to meet with individuals and groups, folks who agree with me and who don't agree with me, in person, on the phone, by email, by messaging. I, as a member of the board, have to do whatever it takes to keep the lines of communication open and hear what the community has to say. I want my actions, one sentence,
One sentence.
I want my actions as a member of the board to enable people to say, with pride, I live in Bella Vista.
Jerry?
Hi, my name is Jerry Barron Jr. I moved here 3 years ago full-time. I retired from a company that I was an environmental specialist for the Lyondell-Bazell Company, research and development. I learned a lot about some things that could help us now. Example, the stump dump. But I still don't know all the details on the stump dump, and none of us do. That's why the questions are there. But tell you something about myself. As I raised my kids, you can tell by my accent in Texas, I taught them high standards to be true to the word and do the best that they can in everything they do. And I carried that on, and my kids carry it on to this day. I've been coming up here to Bella Vista for about 26 years. I've seen all stages of this community. My dad lives here, and I'm proud that he is. But as I got where I could get close to retirement, we actually bought a place in Galveston, Texas. My wife wanted a wonderful beach home. She came up here the first time, and she told me after we left, this is where I want to live. This community draws you in, the people, and everything that it has to give. And every one of us that is here tonight feels that same thing, or you wouldn't be here. I want to give back to this community, and I have a lot of things I can offer this community, not only from the environmental standpoint and opinions, but I ran for 6 years a nonprofit organization, the Galveston County Fair and Rodeo. It started out pretty small. There was only 1,500 kids. That's not really small. But when you got 1,500 kids, I don't know how many parents, if you divide by 700 something parents, you learn to negotiate, to work, and compromise. Every person here uses the amenities in one way or the other. And each one of you focus on your amenities, what's important to you. And then you kind of, next person focus on what's important to them, and you get a kind of divide there. And it is going to take compromise to move forward as we go forward. We've got a lot on our table right now. We've got to be fiscally responsible. We want to keep the amenities we've got without losing them, but we need to be realistic too. And yet we still haven't had an assessment increase since what, 2007, I think? 2001. So we got a road ahead of us. There's going to be a lot of hard decisions to be made. But the communication, I think that we can make that a lot easier. God gave me 2 ears, 1 mouth. My wife tells you sometimes my mouth goes past my ears. But I am going to listen. It's harder than I speak. Thank you.
John?
Good afternoon, my name is John Nuttall. Thank you all for coming. A little bit about how I got here. My wife got transferred here for work. She drove up to Bella Vista. I was down here 3 days later from Chicago looking at houses. Probably the best decision we've ever made in our lives. Why? We're outdoor people. We play golf, my wife more than I. We live on Lake Windsor. I have walked every mile of the back 40. I've walked most of the miles of the 1100. I've got a website about where to walk in Bella Vista if you'd like to come and take a look at it. The lifestyle here is very important. This is a town that's all about having fun. We got settled in, and I started to get involved with the POA. I've been involved with POAs or city government where I've lived for the last 40 years. So I started going to POA meetings once we got the house settled up, and I started to realize that 40–50% of the stuff the POA had was closed. Sitting there idle, empty. We had buildings that were ready to be torn down because nobody used them. These were problems that I thought were interesting. I got involved with the board. I got involved with the first amenity study the POA did. It was on a couple committees. I'm actively a part of the Recreation Committee, the Lakes Committee, and the Community Involvement Committee. I ran for the board. In my 4 years on the board accomplished a lot. Today, every facility the POA has is open and in use. Hasn't been that way for decades. Yes, we spent a lot of money. We got there because we worked with the community to figure out what's going on. In my work life, I was a salesman and a sales manager. And I learned that if you listen to people, a little creative thinking, a little common sense, you can solve all kinds of problems. In my 4 years on the board, I made a priority that everybody knows how to get a hold of me. I've answered hundreds or thousands of questions for people, both in person, by email, and on Facebook. I make sure that everybody that's in my sphere of influence knows what's going on, and they have some idea of why decisions are being made. The things that the board, the reason I'm running again for the board, is we still have a couple problems that need to be handled. One, we need to get our financial house in a little better order. We need to be financially responsible to make sure that we can afford the amenities we have. We have some amenities that need to be managed a little different than they are today. And it's important that you as members get the facts from us about why we make all of those decisions. So in closing, I'd like to ask that if you like what I've done for you in the past, please support me again, and I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, everybody. So this will be, everybody will get a chance to speak first at some point during the questioning. We're going to start first with Steve. There'll be 2-minute responses. You all have covered parts of all the questions that I have, so you may be repeating yourself, but I think that there's enough topics here that everybody can become better informed on your views. So with that, Steve, we'll start with the first question. What are your thoughts on the trails in Bella Vista?
I'm neutral on the trails. I walked them, I enjoy them, but I think that the way the question is always framed, are you for or against them, is very divisive. And I think that it's basically the wrong question. I think we need a paradigm shift. I think everybody would agree that the common property is private property, and that's what our declarations say. So here's the question. If a group came to you and said, look, we want to build a trail through one of your side yards, or maybe your backyard, or an Airbnb type group came up to you and said, we want to use your private property as a spare bedroom, what are you going to say? So it seems to me that no member would agree with the idea that someone comes and says, hey, we'll put on a fresh coat of paint, but you're not going to be compensated, and you're going to have to clean up after your guests. Who would agree to that? Who would agree to those terms? So I should also mention that a relatively small donation of $5 or $10 million to build trails is, it would be akin to Airbnb saying, look, we've spent $100 million on infrastructure, therefore we should be able to use your house. That, as people in Texas say, that dog don't hunt. So I hope this reframing of the trail issue will allow the members to come together. So here's the question. At what level of compensation would you allow someone to build a trail through your private property just like it is through our common private property? What level of compensation? How much access compensation, impact compensation, maintenance compensation would you be willing to do? For $10, you don't have access to my property.
Bruce,
Phrase the question again, please.
what are your thoughts? Excuse me. What are your thoughts on the trails in Bella Vista?
I think I said in my opening remarks that I support the trails, and I do. I'm not a mountain biker. I'm not a runner. I'm a walker. I have walked the trails and I've enjoyed them thoroughly. I'm sure that other people have. I've seen mountain bikers out there. I've seen runners out there. I have to believe that now and in the future, they will bring a certain amount of monetary value to this part of the country. And these trails are being used not only by outsiders, which is true, but by the residents, the members of the POA. It only cost us, and I say only because it's a pretty small amount right now, it only cost us about $72,000 a year to maintain these trails that the Walton Family Foundation built with millions of dollars. And we didn't have to pitch in for that type of expenditure. The trails now are national as far as recognition, and you've got people coming every day, all the time. So it's another, to me, amenity. If you want to call it a major amenity, so be it. But I certainly call it an amenity that not only Bella Vistans can use, but that will bring people in and through our community.
Thank you, Pat.
I'm not a trail biker. And yet at the same time, I can understand people who are. I can understand young people who want to get out and experience the environment. I can understand young people who want to go out and stretch their abilities. I can understand families who want to go out and ride together. I can understand people who want to race, be competitive. I understand all of these things. I also understand golf, and I understand recreation. Each of these serves a community. We have common properties, which we are in a position to use to satisfy the wants and desires of our community. Certainly not all of us want to use the trails, but how many of us in this room don't want to use the golf courses? It's all a matter of trying to serve your community. It's all a matter of listening to what the community wants. It's all a matter of using the resources of the Bella Vista Property Owners Association to best meet the needs of the people that we serve. And if some of the people want to use the trails, many people, if you went to the community meeting the other night about the connector from Metfield down to Flowing Springs, what an enthusiastic group of people. They don't want to ruin your property. They want to use the common property for their enjoyment. One thing that we have to be careful of, though, if the trails come too close to your property, we need to counsel with you to see if some amendment could be made.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay. I'm not against the trails per se. I have no problem with the 40 that we have on the east side of Bella Vista. When we moved to Bella Vista, my wife and I spent almost 2 years looking for the perfect home. I lived in the city for my working career. I didn't like the city. Got people right next door to you. So I looked for a nice secluded spot. And now on the west side, I've got trails being prepared right behind us. Like I say, I'm not against it. My boys ride, and I wish them all the luck. I hope they never get hurt. But I don't see jumping out, taking Walmart's money to build all these extra trails. It would be almost, what, 100 miles of trails. And yet, we still really don't receive any money coming back in. And I'd like to know how many of the local people actually do use the trails. I can't seem to find that out. But I'm not against the trails on the east side. Now, I'm sure there are people that are. But I am when it affects me, the comments of all of ours. And when all of a sudden now I've got people zooming by all the time, or getting ready to have people zooming by, and I've never had an input into it, yeah, I'm a little upset about it. So I will do the best that I can to meet a compromise there. But I think that's amenities that do not bring any form of return. Because I do realize amenities don't always for monetary returns. But there's no place for a lot of these people to really stay here. They can rent a house, they can stay at the campground, and that's pretty much it. How many of that? None of us really know the actual figures that are involved here. But we will be on the block for about $100,000 a year maintenance when Walmart's grant runs out.
Thank you, Jerry. John?
I think it's pretty obvious I'm public on record as being in favor of the trails. Just a little history for everybody. The first trail conversation happened in 2008. First trail was built between 2000 first trail conversation was 2007. First trail was built between 2008 and 2010. Those are the trails at Blowing Springs. From the very beginning, those trails were all open to the public. That was part of the original grant from Walmart in 2007. 2011, 13, and 15, Walmart and some other organizations paid for studies about trails in this market, and the POA paid for an amenity study. If you'd like to go read the amenity study, it's on the POA website. It's under members resources. And one of the things that was on the list of 90% of the members, their top 3 items was they wanted more trails. The idea that there's never been a discussion about these doesn't float with me. I mean, they've been talked about forever. They've actually been here for 10 years. We started building a more vast network as Walmart's money moved north. We're at the far north end. We're at the end of the list of Arkansas money for trails. I hope that you would go out and look at them before you make an opinion on them. I've been on every mile of them in both directions. And you can count on one hand the number of houses that were interfered with. And several of those have built trails from their house to the house, or their house to the trail. Young people today that are professionals don't golf, they ride bikes. We need to be able to have that future for Bella Vista.
Thank you, Tia.
I absolutely see the benefit of trails. I understand why people want them. We're going to use them as a family. We've got a 17-year-old at home and 3 dogs, and my husband and I are pretty active, and there's one going right behind my house, like I said. But my history with these trails and how I found out about them was not appropriate. I found out from neighbors that came to tell me where they were going to go, and having to contact the Trailblazers 4 times with no response, and going on the news channels twice. You probably saw me on there complaining about the trails, because that's how I found out. I don't feel like it was transparent, or it was told to the members, yes, talks could have started in 2008 and trails were being done, but we're people. Until it gets to our backyard, we're not going to know really how that affects us. So in theory, yes, the trails are great. They do bring people. I'm kind of with Jerry on, I don't see where they bring the POA any money. I mean, I believe they'll bring the city money. They'll get tax revenue from people coming in and from members using it. But personally, it just comes down to the simple fact of, I want a new car. I'd like a bigger house, but if I can't afford it, I don't do it. And I feel like at our point where the POA is right now and where our funds are missing right now, we shouldn't be agreeing to any extra cost at this time. It should have been, and I'm not on the board, so I don't know how this worked, but I can just imagine we're giving our land to the public. We're giving it to the city, and Walmart is funding it. But could there not have been a better negotiation of us not having to pay anything?
Thank you. We'll start with the next round of questions to Bruce. Do you have a formula for fiscal responsibility for the POA?
Well, I would be one of the ones that would be on your you-know-what list, I guess, because at one time we had $12 million or more in cash, and now we don't have that amount, but we have greatly enhanced amenities. I think it would behoove everybody in the room to go to the website, to pull up the financials, and to look at the financials. I have a financial background, and while I can say that no, we're not in the same shape as we were a year or two ago relative to our cash position, that we are running along just fine relative to the monies that we generate to run the POA. Plus now we have a number of enhancements again throughout the village that are bringing in money or will bring in money and are certainly attractive to members, and yes, relative to things like golf and the trails, to outsiders. But I think that we have run a pretty good ship financially. I've heard some people at these meetings and other meetings say that we're broke. And I'm sorry, they don't know what they're talking about. You need to look at the financials. And if we borrow from a company that we own 100%. And it's a timing situation, and we pay them back.
Thank you. Pat?
I am in no way a financial expert. I think, I don't want to make light of it, but I think confessing my ignorance is an intelligent thing to say. Because I think that I have to recognize my own shortfalls. But I do understand balance sheets. I do understand some financial statements. When we had that excess, when we had that reservoir of money, one of the things that I said at the board meetings was that for us to have $15 million or $12 million or 13 or whatever, sitting in a bank, earning interest, which is good, and having facilities that were in need of repair, having the yacht club sit vacant, it was costing us $80,000 a year to keep that building empty. That is ridiculous. And so it was incumbent on us to find a way to spend that money wisely and carefully. I think what we could have done is we should have been more reserve conscious so that we had maintained a good deal of that, some of that money in reserve. But the bulk of the money, it only does good for the bankers. For us as a POA, it only does good with what we can buy from it, with it. And so I was very much in favor of spending down those reserves. I turned to people like Bruce and some others on the POA committee to help guide things. It does. I do not abdicate, though, my fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. Jerry?
Yes. It starts with the fact that the POA is a nonprofit organization. I can read financials myself, but basically when you get down to it, it's got to be pushed out to the people. You can't expect them just to go read it all the time. They got to be aware of it. And one of the things that I brought up last year, and I haven't seen anything of it yet, it's supposed to be run like a business, and it is. I'm not disappointed with Tom's performance or a few others. But I've never seen a vision or a mission statement that relates. Every time this board changes hands, ideas change. So not everybody's always going to be on the same path forward from year to year, or an organization times, new chairman each time that comes up. And so I asked myself the other day, what's important with the POA, with all the amenities are here? That's basically what the POA is. It's amenities that people enjoy and go out and use for you and your families. So how do you measure the viability of an amenity? Is it money? Is there something else besides money? So some hard choices have to be made to survive, because money's got to be put out on it. You can't spend money you don't have, and you can't be in a hurry all the time. And when I say you don't have, sometimes projects get really pushed on top of each other. And you're at such a fast pace, you need to step back, because something like the stump dump could happen. You never know. But how do you measure those amenities for success? Nobody's ever uses all the amenities, but everybody uses the amenities that they favor. So you focus on those, but how do you measure what's success? The bike trails, the lakes, golf. We've heard it over the years that golf's going to have to go. Some of the courses may have to be closed. How do you measure that?
Thank you, John.
I do have a plan how to make us more financially responsible. The POA has many divisions, and some of our divisions are declining, some of them are growing. We have one particularly large division that's been declining for the last 20 years. We're still spending a couple $1 million a year to support that. The membership, and that means not just the board, but the membership needs to sit down and make a plan for how to manage declining amenities. And there are not any easy choices. There are lots of options, and we all as a group have to come together and decide what that is. I have ideas that work for me. They may not work for the people that use the amenity as much as I do. But we need to get control over how much we spend on every amenity, and in particular the amenities that are declining. We need to invest our money in things that are growing. The RV park, the camping, the trails are a growing amenity. The city recently came up with an estimate of how many people are out on trails, and if their numbers are right, it's either our second or third largest and most popular amenity. We spend $75,000 a year. We have other amenities that we spend millions on. We have other amenities that we spend $1 million on. And that $75,000 is included in that $1 million. We need to make sure that we have services for all the different user groups. I don't care what amenity you use, you're in a minority. No amenity has more than about 14 or 15% of the members use it. So that means that every amenity, 85% of the people are in favor of it. So the board has to balance that out, make sure we spread the money out across all the different groups so that we service the needs of these people, and those people, and the people over here, because they're all a little different. Thanks.
Thank you. Tia?
So the question was a formula for fiscal responsibility. I personally think that's what we do every day in our personal lives, managing our own bank accounts and trying to figure out what we should spend and what we can invest in, and that's where the POA is right now. But Bruce and Pat are right. We've had some amazing things fixed and renovated, and having $12 million sitting in a bank is not doing us any good. We are a nonprofit. We're not for profit. So we did need to do a lot of things that have been done in the past. But at this point where we are, it's time to rein in. It's time to take a step back. It's time to reevaluate what we're spending that money on, and is it what the members want to spend it on. It shouldn't be, I know you are voting for us, and yes, we are going to vote for you, but I don't believe that it should be our opinion of where we put that money. You guys should have a lot more say-so in that. And we do. We just need to rein it in a little bit. We need to make sure we're making a profit, that we can pay our own bills. That's what we all just need to make sure we're doing, is paying our own bills.
Thank you. Steve?
I do want to make clear that, yes, I agree, we've had great improvements over the last 5 years. Well needed, money well spent. But, you know, it's here in black and white about perhaps some of the reason why that was spent. And now we're in I guess we've got water money, so we're not broke per se. But the 12 million is gone. We are borrowing money. So what are we going to do? And I think the first thing to recognize is that we are a community. We are in this together. And as it's been mentioned, not all of us use every single amenity. We pick and choose, but we moved here for a very good reason. We like it. We love the amenities, the shared interests, the people, the peace and quiet. Those are the reasons we moved here. And to me, again, my platform is members first. Let me give you an example of what that means. I was out walking on the trails, and I ran into some people, and I said, how is it going? And they said, we love it here. I said, well, we love it here too. And I said, so do you live around here? No, we live over in somewhere. We're not members. We're just here using your stuff. I said, well, you know what? We've got a lot special for sale. It's only $200 and then $16 a month. You could enjoy everything. And they said, well, why should we do that? I mean, we're already doing that. So, I thought later on, gee, if we just charged maybe $10 a car for non-members to use our parking lots, and they are POA parking lots, maybe they'd be motivated. If they did it twice a month, they'd be motivated to become a member.
Thank you. So our next question will start with Pat. What are your thoughts about an assessment increase?
I think we need a paradigm shift. And by that, I mean, in the past, we have put before the community an assessment increase. And we say, okay, if you vote this assessment increase, we're going to do this year, and this year, and this year. And oh, by the way, down the road, a piece, we're going to build an activity center or something like that. You, as members, need to see a benefit from an assessment increase the moment you put your name down as voting for it. You need to understand what you're going to get. I have proposed that we should make some arrangements where our amenity usage is either zero or a very small amount. That you as a member get free access to amenities such as recreation. Now, what about golf? Well, because of the cost of golf, we can't make it free. But that's got to have, you have to be special. You have to have, members have benefits. You have to recognize what you get by being here. And that get means something in the way of a financial offset. Okay? Essentially, that's what I want to do with the assessment increase. Change the paradigm so that you're not just giving us money and not seeing any benefits, but seeing real benefits the moment you vote for the assessment increase.
Thank you. Jared?
Yeah. So I retired in 2016. I entered my second childhood. I liked the amenities. When we had our home in Texas, I paid a huge amount, I thought, for what I had. I thought, oh, we got a pool and a playground for the kids. And I paid almost $480 for that. And I thought, well, that was value. I come here and I really got value. I mean, my gosh, think about all the amenities that are out here, all that you use. Where in the world can you find a place that charges that? But we pay every month for our assessments on our houses. It's hard to find. We have a gym right here. And every gym, though, needs a little bit of correction. I'm for an assessment increase. My dad's not. But I think that you cannot, we don't even get a cost of living a lot of times in an assessment increase. And things cost more, and the normal budgets that are set, they get bigger. And I think that it should be in line with progress to keep the amenities that we've got. Or we need to make some hard choices. But I'm in favor of the assessment.
Thank you, John.
I'm in favor of an assessment increase. It's been 17 years, 18 years now. It really is about time. Nothing is free. I mean, Bella Vista is based, there are no government entities supporting our amenities. If we want something, we have to pay for it. I moved here because I enjoy the amenities. I like to go out and golf. I like to go play on my boat in the lake. I like to walk on the trails. I like to ride my bike. Everybody at the gym knows me here. And it's a heck of a value. Unfortunately, the board hasn't convinced everybody else that we've been doing a good job with your money. And we need to do that. We need to make sure that everybody thinks they're getting their money's worth. And we need to get a couple things straight in our financial statement so people realize that we're getting value for every dollar we spend. My good friend over here, who's another libertarian, says it doesn't matter if you spend money as long as you get your money's worth out of it. And a lot of people don't believe that they're getting their $24 worth. I don't understand how that comes to their mind, but we need to fix that in everybody's mind before an assessment increase is going to pass. And yes, we need one desperately.
Thank you, Tia.
I am not for an assessment increase. Not the way it was proposed this last time, not the way that it was unfair for built and unbuilt lots. We have 3. I bought the lots next to us because we wanted that beautiful Bella Vista scenery and not have things in our backyard. And paying that $56 was worth it to me for that privacy. But when it came to, like I said, 2 years here, and I've been still trying to wrap my head around why I'm paying $772 a year, plus every member in my house has to get a POA ID card, plus you have to pay to get into any amenities. I'm not seeing a benefit in that 50 cents I get to save that the public gets to pay extra. I'd rather just not pay my fees and pay 50 cents more every time I go to the beach or elsewhere that we've used. I do understand that we need it though, but that's going to come down to a restructuring and getting something for the members. I need to feel like I'm getting my money worth, that I'm paying for something, that maybe it's 1 or 2 amenities for free. I don't know the answer, I really don't, but that's something as a board and as a community we've got to find out what matters to us to make that money worth it, and then maybe we would all vote for an assessment increase.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Frankly, the last, how many has it been? 3 or 4 or 5 requests for more money. I've been against it. The first time they asked for it, I thought, well, we got $12 million in the bank. Why do they need another $7 from me? The next couple of times, as Tia mentioned, there were some, in my opinion, some ballot questions, like stuffing the ballot or should we vote those POA lots or not. I just can't support that type of thing. They complain about no increases since 2001. Well, when we got rid of the city services or devoted things to the city, fire, police, street sanitation, we now pay taxes. So we've had an equivalent increase. But the facts are that, yes, we have spent our reserves. Yes, they've been needed. Yes, they're great. But a new package, as Pat phrased it, a paradigm shift is necessary in my opinion. I mentioned in my opening statement I've been working on one since about a year ago, a package plan, and I need to make it very clear it is a package, which means it looks at not only the easy, so to speak, gee, we need another $5 from everybody, but we need to look at the expenses and where we've been spending money and is it worth it? And what have we done to, again, be that tourist destination versus be a member? And can we do things that do make it worthwhile to be a member and support that increase? But right now, as it is, without any changes, there's no way, there's no reason to raise assessments.
Thank you, Bruce.
Putting aside this member, non-member usage issue, if you will, what I would like to see and what I would like to strive for is the kind of monthly assessment fee wherein, with the exception of golf and the restaurants, we pay nothing for the use of any of the other amenities. That would be my goal going forward. That's the way I see it.
All right, thank you, Jerry. This is your question to start with. What are your thoughts about transparency and how could the board improve on it?
I was having this talk with Tom Judson earlier, and because I was trying to wrap my mind around that exact thought. And I've kind of stated certain things about it, but to me it starts with a vision and a mission statement. Something that the whole POA believes in. It's like any business. Most businesses have the same thing. That we can all kind of say, yeah, that's what Bella Vista stands for. We don't have that right now. And then I talked about it gives without a way to measure the success of an amenity. You're kind of competing against each group. Each amenity is competing against each other. And to me, that's where you start getting your sense of appearance of no transparency. It comes into that play at that time. POA is a nonprofit group. And I asked, how do we measure an amenity? Because it's not always measured in dollars. I never met anybody that uses all amenities. I said that once before. But people support the amenities they use. We already said that. But have you heard of any amenity that makes money besides the RV park, maybe the restaurants? We're not hearing that communication, I guess, and that's probably my fault. But if you truly want transparency, you're going to have an individual way to measure accountability for each amenity and hold the people accountable for that run those amenities, as well as the budget would reflect a lot of it. That could be one way. We need to look at the staffing that we have. Every meeting I've been to, when they talk, they say management's not up for discussion. We need to have those discussions to get transparency forward.
Thank you, John.
Can you please re-ask that question?
What are your thoughts about transparency and how could the board improve on it?
Transparency is actually the fundamental thing of any government business agency. There are very few issues that come before the board of directors that should be conducted in private. Part of the reason I'm running for the board, not currently a board member, is I had a disagreement with the previous board over what the definition of transparency is. The membership has the right to know the answer to every question before we make a vote on those. And that doesn't mean you get it 15 minutes before the meeting. There's no reason that information that happened 3 or 4 weeks ago is held off until the last minute. Transparency is a state of mind. If not only do you have to go through the efforts to make sure you get the information out, make sure it's available in lots of places, you actually almost have to spoon feed it to people. I noticed there were people that looked at me funny when I said we started talking about trails in 2007, and they go, well, I never heard about that. Yeah, it happens, and we didn't do a good job of getting the information out somewhere along the line. And I work real hard to get information out to people, and I have a little thing that I post on the internet every once in a while, and it's what does the city do, what does the ACC do, and what does the POA do. I published that yesterday about 5 o'clock as an answer to a question. And 17 people commented to me, boy, this is great information. How come I've never heard this before? I have probably put it on the internet 5,000 times. I put it out at least once or twice a week. But it's important that we get our information out in as many different ways as we can. The POA has email blasts, we have newsletters, and those are all things that, it's a two-way street. You have to ask for information and we have to make it available to you. And it's the cornerstone of what the board does.
Thank you. Tia?
Transparency is always going to be a hard one. You can put information out everywhere, social media, emails, websites, and people are still not going to always see it. And I have to actually thank John, because when I first moved here, the majority of things that I learned was from him posting it on Facebook. And then from finding out that that's one of the reasons he wasn't on the board anymore, that shocked me. I can promise from myself that I will be transparent. I will always answer your questions. I'm available, email, phone, any way, social media that you want to contact me, I will be transparent. But I also want to turn that challenge back on you guys. The last POA board meeting had one person that was not a candidate at that meeting. We have thousands of people and they're not being involved. And we need people to be involved. That's how you're going to be the most transparent. Word of mouth to your own neighbors, talk to them, come to the meetings and find out what's happening. And that's really the only way I think the board can be any better. They do have great emails, they do have a great website, but we've got to help them too.
Thank you, Steve.
You know, there's a couple of things that we can do. One is a mission value type of a statement. It would seem that it's apparent that our mission is somehow tied to whatever the declarations say, but that's not always the case. Another area is we could eliminate private meetings, except for personnel issues or contracts. We just get rid of them. There's no reason that I understand, but I'm on the outside looking in, why do we have private meetings? You know, I hope I'm very transparent in what I've been saying tonight, what I said on my video. I am sincere, members first, and what does that mean? And asking that policy question, what's in it for us, the members? So if I'm elected, that's as transparent as I can be. So what does it mean? It's like when I met those people on the trail, and if we can charge $10 for parking, that'll be helpful. That's something for the members.
Thank you, Bruce.
I think Tia hit the nail on the head, and I'm a little bit askance at Steve's remark about private meetings. The board has one closed meeting a month. One. All the other meetings are open to the public. All the committee meetings are open to the public. Anybody in this room, anybody that lives in the village can go to these meetings. And I agree with Tia. They should go. They owe it to themselves to go. They find out things that are not put through the social media or the grapevine or are simply hearsay. It's already been said, but we've got a great website that's very, very detailed. We've got a great magazine, if you will, in corrections. We have a great email service. If people were to just read these, they would know a lot more about what's going on relative to the village. Bella Vista, I'm sorry. I keep calling it the village. It is that to me. But that's, I think, how we come together. Thank you.
Pat?
Over the past several years, I think we've made great strides in trying to be more visible, more transparent. I would like to say that there are 3 people sitting in the front of this room to whom we owe a debt of gratitude. The video gentleman over here, Lynn Adkins, from the Bella Vista, from the Voice, the Weekly Vista, and Kevin Dooley, who will post this meeting on a website that you can look at anytime you want. Kevin does a great job and I have to say that at our meetings, we have the TV station coming in and broadcasting. We have Kevin coming in, we have the TV station, we have Lynn Adkins reporting, we have videos of meetings. Part of the deal is that we are a consumer society, and oftentimes we get into a position where we consume rather than raise our food. You know, we eat information if it's presented to us in a palatable form. Sometimes it's difficult to find out what's going on. But we have to all ask ourselves, is not a little bit of effort to find out what's happening in our community a better alternative than remaining ignorant and just having an opinion?
Thank you. We'll now begin the last round of the last question, and we'll start with John. Describe what you feel is your role on the board and what you hope to accomplish.
The most important role of any board member is to listen to what the membership and the people of Bella Vista want to talk about. If the membership wants to talk about archery ranges or whatever topic, it's the board's responsibility to gather that information, bring it back, to formulate a plan to service the needs of the members. We have a lot of diverse groups of people here, and it's the board's job to make sure that we provide the services that you're all asking for. Our job is not to save a bunch of money and get a big bank account. Our job is to spend the money that we bring in to provide the services that you want. And we have had a paradigm shift in Bella Vista. 15 years ago, this was a golfing and retirement community. Today, it's a family-oriented recreation community. We have a lot of new needs. We have a lot of members that use amenities that we never thought of. You go into one of our recreation rooms and there's a whole string of new equipment and a whole bunch of free weights, and I can assure you no 70-year-old guys are lifting free weights. We used to all walk on the treadmill. We have those recreation facilities have all changed. We've done a really good job keeping up with some. We're not as good as others, but the most important thing that a board member needs to do is, because it doesn't matter what I want to do, it matters what the community wants to do. Hopefully, I can gather that information from you. I work hard at trying to figure out what people think is important. And I'm a pretty good listener, so I usually have a pretty good idea where they're going. But if I can listen and gather what you want, then the board can head in that direction. And that's our important job, is to listen to you.
Thank you, Tia.
So my role on the board, what I feel like I can bring best to this board is, don't shoot me first of all, I am a millennial. I know that's like a bad word, but I'm a responsible millennial, and I do bring different thinking to this board. I love thinking outside of the box. I will ask the tough questions. I've always been a very strong woman that is not shy to put my opinion out there or to ask things that others just don't want to ask at the time. And then the most important is speaking for the member. I didn't feel like I was being heard in these past couple years. And I want to be that person on the board that's going to listen to you. I might not always agree with you, but I'm going to listen to you and hear the other side. And like Steve said earlier, being able to see two sides of an argument is something I am very strong at. That if I understand what our community wants, I want to hear it from you guys. I want to know where we want to go with the future of Bella Vista. Some other things, financially intelligent. It's one thing I can definitely bring to this board. My previous role, I managed an $800 million business. I understand P&Ls. I've been trained in it. I've been successful in it. That's why I'm in my current work position. And I will be diligent with your money. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I see the role on the board as one where the board members serve the community, serve the members. The management serves the board, but the board serves the members, and we're to be guided by the ruling documents, sort of like the country itself. We've got the Declaration and the Bill of Rights and all of that, and that's what our job is. We want to listen, we want to hear, we want to know what is the input, but again, as I mentioned on the transparency issue, what you see is what you get. Members first, and to answer that question, what's in it for us, the members? That's the job of the board. The financial responsibility, absolutely. It's been mentioned over and over where we're at. Again, we had great improvements, but we are here where we are, and we're going to require some changes to move forward to the benefit of all the members.
Thank you, Steve. Bruce?
I would say, as John said and Tia said, listen, listen, listen. My contact information is on the website, and anyone should feel free to contact me literally whenever they want to. Something, though, I wanted to bring in closing to your attention, and some of you already know of this, but we're unique in that we have to involve ourselves with the city and Cooper communities. And that's a triumvirate, if you will, of three, and it's extremely difficult. Especially our relationship sometimes with Cooper. And it's a tough one to understand and grasp, but it does need attention and understanding. We certainly hope in the future we can hit smoother sailing there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
I feel like I am an independent voice. Independent in that I don't accept much just because. I always have to have an answer or a reason. I have to feel satisfied. My kids sometimes say to me, well, you always think you're right. And of course my answer to them is, of course I do. Why would I be taking this position? I believe that I do the same thing on the board. I think that there are times that I irritate the hell out of the other board members. My wife can tell you, I was drafting a letter to the board members, and over the past, it's one page, and over the past 2 or 3 days, I have spent 10 to 12 hours drafting that memo. I am committed. I am engaged. When people say, and I'd say this to the new members of the board, the people that are running who have not been on the board before, you don't realize how much time we spend. You don't realize how engaged we are. A friend of mine said, I'm gonna sign up so that you can run, but I'm not gonna vote for you. And my wife said, well, why aren't you gonna vote for him? And he said, I want my friend back. We spend endless amounts of time, and I am willing to do that. No one could ever accuse me of not being engaged. I dedicate myself to you, the community.
Thank you. Jerry?
I think the most important thing that any member that's running for the POA board can bring is to listen to the people. And listen with an open mind and a little common sense. Bring that back to the board, Be willing to make compromises as well as willing to stand your ground if you believe something's strong, that your people have told you, we don't want this. I know that a lot of times you've got to come up, it all ends with some type of compromise. But you still need to be true to yourself as a POA member on this board. And I think that the best thing we can do is to bring that integrity that you have as an individual, common sense, and the willing to listen and talk with people. And that's it.
Thank you. We'll now begin our closing statements. There'll be a 2-minute time limit. Tia, you're up first.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I really hope to see you at more board meetings and reaching out to me at any time. I know I've spoken a lot tonight about my opinions and what I think about this city and how fantastic it is, but we have to understand we're going to have some rough few years, and I really do want to be part of it. I want to serve you. I want to be here for you and to make Bella Vista grow in how wonderful it already is. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'll probably be posting on social media different meeting times over the next month where I'm going to go sit at Java Jude's. You're welcome to come out and talk to me. I'll probably be outside Allen's just talking to everybody. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for coming.
Steve?
Right, thank you again for coming. It's good to see everybody. As I mentioned earlier, I will be hanging around after this meeting. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to hear from you. My phone number, my email is posted on the website. And if you want to meet in a small group, I'm available to do that as well. I ask for your support and your vote. You know, a couple of things I do want to hit on as we close. On the transparency issue I mentioned, I hope what you see is what you get. I hope I've been very transparent. I believe it's members first. And answering the question, what's in it for us? That would be the directing if we're on the board doing these discussions. I'd like to rephrase or reframe that trail question because I think it is so divisive. Whether you're for them or against them, I think it just needs to be reframed and decided and bring it all together. I think the board is to serve the members, not necessarily the public. But again, don't get me wrong, we love our guests, bring all your friends and families. If you agree in restoring the value of being a member, then I ask for your vote. And that would help us to ensure that for our, not only us, but also our heirs, our children, and their children. Thank you again.
Thank you, Bruce. I just want to say thank all of you for coming tonight. I think all of us up here really appreciate that you're here, that you're listening, that you've asked intelligent questions, and that we tried to answer them to the best of our ability. I would love for you to vote for me, but please vote for somebody.
Thank you, Bruce. Pat?
I think one of the things I look up and down the table, and you all are blessed with a number of really fine candidates. I think that I, as a member of the community, would be happy with any of these ladies and gentlemen. What you have to do is now distinguish which of us has said, which of us has answered some of the questions you have, some of the things you think are important about our community moving forward. And I pray for your wisdom. Thanks.
Thank you. Jerry?
Yes, I'm running for the POA board to fulfill the commitment that I made to myself to have a full life. And community service is part of that. I love to play, but I also am committed to you as individuals. I'm committed to this community. And this is one way to show that, by bringing deep responsibility and commitments that I have in me, I think that I can work well with anybody. I will always listen to you, and I will always hear you. Whether I agree, well, if I disagree with you, I'm going to tell you I disagree with you, because I am outspoken. But I will always bring, whether I disagree with you or not, your questions forward. And we'll have that discussion, and I'll take it farther up to the board. I think that's what you want. You want somebody that's going to represent you. And that's what I hope to bring. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I wish there were another 1,000 of you out there, but I'm glad that you're interested in what's going on with our community. I'm running for the board for one reason. I love Bella Vista. It's a great place to live. And I want it to be better when I leave than it is today. And it's pretty darn nice today. The Bella Vista is about three things. Being a board member is about three things for me for Bella Vista. The POA is about having a place to have fun. We need to have financial responsibility. The board needs to get the facts out to the members. Let's face it, all the POA does is fun, and you should be able to enjoy yourself in every amenity. When we make decisions, we need to make them with the finances and the long-term life of the village in mind. We need to plan for the future. We need to spend wisely, get our money's worth. And it's our money, all of us individually. And we need to make sure that we have the facts readily available for you to help you understand why decisions are made. You're not going to agree with every decision the board makes. I don't. But you need to understand why the decision was made. Okay? And the board should never absolutely agree on everything all the time, because that's not what a community is. We have to do a little give and take for everybody. There are some people that need different than the other groups. So I'd like you to remember I have a record of making sure that I'm available. I'm very open about what's going on. If you ever have a question, get a hold of me. I have a couple of meetings planned for later in the month to talk to small groups. I'll get them out so people know, and I will be available afterwards. And I'd appreciate your vote in the next election. Thank you.
Yes. Now we'd like to thank our candidates. I think we have some tough decisions coming up as to how we're voting. We'll be voting for 3 members. The ballots will be coming out in the mail after the 1st of April, the first part of April. The results of the election will be announced at 6 p.m. May 21st at the annual meeting here at Riordan Hall. We encourage everybody to come. I want to thank you all for coming. We've had a great turnout tonight. I'm really thankful for that. I also want to thank the other committee members on the election committee, Jim Miller, Bob Rischel, and Ann Dalton. So with that, I'm sure these candidates will be around if you have some individual questions. I want to thank you for coming out, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.